I think those of us who look upon Europe with some justified concern about where it's headed and the state it's in could be accused of looking at the past through rose-tinted glasses. I'm talking of the sort of clips you see on your screen now, complete with the jaunty music. This looks like another world. The streets are clean, the people are well dressed, they look like they're polite to one another. Things look orderly, and it looks, to be honest, heavenly and idyllic. And it's important to add that this is real footage, it's not AI. This is what England was actually like, or at least parts of it, and not so long back either. Yet we should also remember that not so long back conditions were terrible. Life could be absolutely brutal, especially if you were poor, as this tragic footage shows of a chimney sweep. A 4-year-old, toxic white male bigot enjoying his white privilege there. Now this footage is just tragic. You'd have to have a heart of stone not to be moved by the plight of this poor little lad, and apparently most chimney sweeps died by the time they got to their adolescence due to scrotal cancer. Apparently most of them were put down chimneys naked and the tar stuck to their nether regions and was never cleaned off. Now, whether we view such things as the result of the Industrial Revolution, or maybe because we've advanced technologically and arguably morally, is up to you. Yet the reality is that times, thankfully, have changed. We now live in the modern, technologically advanced world. A variety of food is always on the shelves. We have a welfare state if people are struggling. Boys aren't sent down chimneys any longer. So why are people like me still complaining? Well, Peter Hitchens, who I've described as half prescient seer and half black-pilled doomer writing obituaries for England, has a good line on this, and that's that it's not that we should go back to the past, it's that we chose the wrong future. That's a very succinct way of putting it, and I think he's correct. We can look back at the tragedy and brutality of the past, as well as the order and beauty of it simultaneously. Just as we can look at the modern world and admire some of the freedoms and technological advancements it offers, but at the same time recognise that we've lost something essential, a collective identity, arguably even our tradition and our soul. Now, if the West is to survive the chaos of modernity, we have a very important lesson to write into the very core of our culture. And that's that material wealth and liberal freedoms, despite being great for a while, in the end can start to degrade your very spirit. Man and civilization relies on something more subtle, something non-worldly in its foundations. Jesus Christ taught this in his famous passage in Matthew where he states, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal." The inference obviously being that if we chase worldly possessions, we will see in time that they degrade us as well as the culture around us. Treasures in heaven refers to things such as honesty, justice, love, beauty and truth. As you might imagine, if you make such things the focal point of your life, you may discover that your inner world starts to heal and you find some sort of peace within. Further still, if you find a mass of people within a given civilization adheres to the same collective consciousness, or at least a critical mass of them, what you'll find is the external world starts to become more orderly and balanced. And this is exactly what we've forgotten in modernity. Material wealth is all well and good, but when it starts to supplant the spiritual order of life, you'll find it lets in all sorts of alien ideologies, which undermines your culture, your tradition, and your people. And this brings us up to today and the themes I speak about in these videos. The issue is we've forgotten the core of our tradition and we're living in the age of the merchant. Yet as I've said many times on this channel, it seems that we're ruled by the leftist liberal multi-culti types, and it's definitely true they have a lot of cultural power. Yet in reality such people are just useful idiots who are being used by the globalist money power system in order to break down the homogeneity and the unity of Western nations from within. Of course, by doing this, such nations become weak and vulnerable to the domination of international finance capital. Yet for the powers that be, the plan has worked out beautifully. Money power rules the ruse from behind the scenes, and the leftist liberals do their bidding while thinking they're the heroic warriors fighting against the bigotry of the age. Now this explains this bizarre zeitgeist of the age, this pseudo-morality where you have to be consistently liberal towards everything, gay marches, Islam, multiculturalism, mass immigration. As long as you're accepting and glowing about all of them, you're on the quote right side of history. Now if you reject this supposed vision of hope, you're apparently full of fear and hatred. Worse still, you're a sort of moral reprobate that the system has to keep an eye on because, you can't be trusted. Islam is the most prominent example here. If you say anything critical towards the religion of peace, you're immediately suspect and evil and racist and so on, despite us having multiple terror attacks, the issue of grooming gangs, as well as prominent Muslims themselves saying isolated young British Muslims are becoming a national security risk. Yeah, I think those young isolated Muslim lads have been a problem for a while. The only issue is if we raise it, the leftist liberals attack us with the "How dare you criticise the religion of peace? It's a lovely thing. Come on the right side of history, celebrate migrants and learn to appreciate gay sex. Now bend over and learn to be more inclusive." So now we're stuck living in this bizarro fantasy world where nothing makes sense anymore. Everything's a contradiction, such as this is from the Home Office yesterday. When terrorist attacks occur, we are faced with a choice: live in fear or find hope. After the 2017 Manchester Arena bombing, we chose hope. We are honouring those who lost their lives by ensuring the UK is safer from attacks at public premises and events. This is just utter madness. They must think we have Stockholm Syndrome at this point. Maybe we do. Note how they don't say terrorist attacks shouldn't occur. They just say the next time they occur, we're faced with a choice, fear or hope. I mean, it's like an abusive husband saying to his wife, next time I beat you, because we all know it's going to happen, don't we? I won't use my fists. I'll try and use the belt instead. We all love the belt, don't we? It's old school. And what's their definition of hope anyway? Extra security and some more barriers to try and stop kids getting mutilated for going to a pop concert, and plus the security stuff won't make a difference anyway because the guy at Manchester was afraid of approaching the bomber for being called racist. And who could blame that young guy anyway? We can see he's just a young man. He will have spent his whole life being browbeaten by liberals about not judging a book by its cover and squashing down all his natural instincts because he might be doing a racism. But don't worry, to solve the problem of liberal make-believe Britain, we're getting an actual universal theme park now in Bedford. So we've got make-believe upon make-believe. This brings to mind John Baudrillard's famous insight that Disneyland is presented as imaginary in order to make us believe that the rest is real. Anyhow, I hope this explains the problems with modernity as I see them, where the West has gone wrong, and what we desperately need to learn. If you're interested in personal and spiritual transformation, do check out my new channel down below. You want to connect with me exclusively, do join the Substack. Other than that, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments, and do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.